call to order and review the July minutes.
I guess I'll take the role I always do and say, we should have read it beforehand, and I'll make a motion to accept.
For a second,
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I guess I should have asked if there was any discussion.
I just had a question on the chain
Yeah,
for the what is the,
I think we'll get to that when, well,
okay,
yeah, because I did want to discuss that. Prospect Farm, I called Rick Davis. Didn't speak with him, but I did leave a message inviting him to mow and letting him know it'll just be the orchard this year. Ski touring will be doing Hall's Ledge. So I may follow through with him a little later, but so I did reach out to him beforehand.
Yeah, and I've been up there a bit lately, and again, the culvert work that Jackson Ski Tour has done has been excellent. It's really kept that whole network of trails together. I did every single out and back dead end just the other day. And it's very noticeable that the ditching is appropriate size. It's well done. And we should definitely keep any large vehicle off of it. Because it is working. Yeah. It's good to see.
Excellent.
And I confess, I was gonna go up and measure how much gravel we needed. I will try to do that sometime this week. I've been away for much of the month.
Yeah, and I've seen some people parking in the overflow, the new parking lot.
And I go up with a weed whacker in between it.
Here's Pam.
I did not get a chance to, I thought I was going to be able to have a chance to chat with Gary at the FEMA meeting, but because the way they staged it did not overlap, so. And someone had responded to a minute item where we were discussing the knotweed, and so people are aware that we're up there pulling stuff.
Yeah.
So, they were, yeah, so people are aware of what we're doing up there, so I think it's,
I don't know if you noticed, the last time I was up there was probably early July. I didn't see any at that time when I was up there. I don't know if
I
you
didn't
guys see.
see it either.
I pulled everything that
I
was
think, yeah,
sticking up,
yeah.
so, yeah. And I went back, I verified, you know, when is that early infestation before it has a chance for the rhizome to develop, stressing it as much as possible before going into needing to have to spray is good. So I like what we're doing. That's the approved path of treating it. So feel good about that. If there's anything else about Prospect,
Well, I was up there and I just kind of poked around the orchard a bit. Are we still discussing maybe having an outside group begin to prune that, maintain that? That was at one point something we had talked about. It's a bit for volunteers or volunteers and somebody, whatever that is. It's just, it's July, or it's not, it's August now. So if that's something we're thinking of doing, there's a few different different groups that I know of that could at least discuss interest, cost, timelines. But it really needs to start with us. But I've already kind of spread that seed a little bit.
Well, the best time to do it is like October, is that correct?
No, winter.
Winter?
Winter's the best time to plan is well ahead, just because that's always our.
I think if you could bring a cost estimate to the next meeting.
Mhm. I mean, it's nothing that I think anyone would take on in a calendar. I mean, they could take it on a calendar. I don't think it's something we could afford if everyone did it one calendar. Sure, I mean, that's an undertaking.
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, in phases, a general plan,
Yeah.
that was a many-year plan, so if you came through and hit everything, well, let's just say the majority of it for an initial prune, then probably another initial prune, then you're starting to maybe start to do some maintenance at that point, but it's hours
Yeah.
in those trees, per tree, until you get it.
How many trees are there?
Oof.
20,
Oh,
probably.
there's more
Yeah,
than
at least.
Yeah. Then there's the lower, that other part of the orchard that's downhill and to the south a little bit. There's got to be, just say there's at least 25 trees. I'd say 25 trees that are worth putting the effort into.
Okay.
It's just, I mean, it's in a way it's exciting because if that begins, then it's potentially for any of us who does want to volunteer, it's something you could take on versus like what Dudley and I tried to do. It's sort of overwhelming.
Yeah.
What kind of, I mean, ballpark, like, would they give a total estimate or would it just be sort of an hourly?
Let me ask. I don't know if you have any. I know that there's someone hired at the Fosters who does pruning, but it's probably by hour, not by tree. But I would just say it'd probably have to be a general scope of us trying to find what's a comfortable cost that we could put out per season and maybe balance that out to what they feel like trees would cost per.
You might even phrase it, put in 2 hours a tree.
Right,
Or
yeah.
some kind of
Right.
time limit so they don't feel like, oh, how much do we have to do? 'Cause
Right.
it's
Yeah.
almost unending.
Yeah.
So you
it's
say, put in 2 hours of tree,
Mhm.
25 trees, 50 hours,
Mhm.
and do an estimate like that.
That's probably a wise way, because Dick's right, you could literally spend half a day in each tree. But that's not really what they need right now, they need to be gone through and the dead removed and the big suckers and just allowing the shape to, how you want to develop the tree to grow.
Well, Brian, if you know some folks,
Yeah, I know 2 different.
yeah, I might suggest that you ask them for a proposal, and it would sort of be a twofold proposal. One would be to just go in and try to get it all caught up right now to see what the cost is. And the other is how they might recommend staggering it. I mean, I don't feel comfortable giving the advice on the right way to do it, because I just don't have any experience. But if these people are professionals, it might be worth them giving us a bid proposal on how they think best to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a slightly tangential, but kind of a question of how we're approaching getting bids for work, like having it be a little bit more organized, like having a formal bid notice that we're accepting things. I realize that the way things happen here is that it's all relational, but
Yeah.
if we're just encountering this in the FEMA side of things, it was like, if we can't show that we have a process where it was opened up, that we asked for submissions for things,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we were to, because I think there probably would be available some sort of funds to maintain the orchard.
Yeah,
Well, we have the Baker Fund. I forget what's in there, but my guess is a price efficient fund. What I might suggest, and this is, I mean, I'd gotten a Northern Border Regional Commission grant for the Jackson Ski Touring Foundation, and we're required to get a bid from 2 entities. We don't have to say how we went about it, but if you know a couple, then I would suggest getting a bid proposal from the 2 different folks you knows, which then makes it legitimate as opposed to just Brian know
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But I think that.
And I don't know if the FEMA's the same, but they didn't tell us we had to put an ad in the paper and stuff. They just require us to get a bid from at least 2 different entities.
Well, they have their federal contracting guidelines, which
Yeah.
have all sorts of notifications, and that was one of their questions that came up. And for the most part, the work that happens in this town is forced labor through the highway department, so it's not an issue there. But like the things that we were doing at Jackson Falls and the
Yeah.
walkway. The walkway was a deliberative process. We requested bids, we only received one, that sort of thing. I think, it seems like a fairly innocuous thing to ask for. Like, well, we didn't do that. And so if we just, I don't want it to be sort of a
Yeah,
cover your ass situation, but if we didn't ask, we didn't ask. But-
right,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, we're also in a slightly unique environment too. We're in a very small population and there's few groups that do a lot of the things you do. It's like,
Yeah.
you could ask for, get 10 roofers to show up, get none. You know,
Yeah.
but you do have to put the effort in. But I think some of that effort is just asking all the people you know to do it. It doesn't mean that you have a paper trail that shows it. It's like at some point, it's like, I know 15 people that do this. I asked 10 of them, and we have one person who actually said, "Oh, I'm going to go up there and look at it." You know, it's like it ends up being a person that's your friend because they want to do it because they're your friend and they
Yeah.
kind of get it. So I think we naturally kind of can fall into those pathways. But yeah, there's at least 2
Okay.
people who would be interested.
And if one of them doesn't put in a bid, at least you
Yeah.
made the,
Right,
The honest
you
way to
involved you.
you offered it
It's
correct.
in the minutes.
It's not like you put a notice out.
Which we could.
I'm always, is e-news sufficient in that case, or does it need to go into the Sun, or, I mean,
Well, if you go to the Sun, you're gonna have to pay more.
yeah.
And then someone has to take the, I mean, if you know 3 people that you trust to do something, I think that's where we start. I don't want to start taking phone calls from,
I mean, I don't know if FEMA, but I know with Northern Borders, we don't have to go to the paper and that, but we do have to demonstrate that we solicited 2 different bids.
yeah,
Okay.
that won't be a problem.
So I guess since we discussed the gravel, I think we can
Yeah.
move that into next month, or,
And I think most people think, what, about 6 inches deep? I mean, it's pretty smooth out there right now.
in the,
It's quite flat, and what I would do is just designate the area that's gonna be the parking lot. Essentially take the area, divide it by half a foot, and
You just
Math
make,
is-
make sure it's a product that the town advises.
well, then we go back to Gary and say, this is what it is.
This is the product.
This is what we need.
Yeah, but it needs to be a compactable
Right.
product that's not just like 3/4 inch gravel or something
Right.
like that. It needs to be a real packable, something you can,
Well, once I get those measurements, I will,
yeah, and they'll know what we should be
Right.
putting there. Because remember, you're coming in and literally turning on this stuff.
yeah, yeah.
So,
okay. Jackson Falls. So I guess just to kind of catch Dick up, we had discussed some sort of crowd control barrier situation. I've been rethinking, we discussed using like a chain on a post, just kind of to protect the planting areas and just direct pathways so people can see where they're supposed to go rather than trying to guess, which is,
It's a good idea. You're gonna lose metal chain. You will, I know you will.
I recommend the plastic chain.
Yeah. Which is,
Razor?
I think it does the job. It's not worth, I don't think it's worth taking apart to pilfer it. And it delineates the area just like you want. Because I've also seen it with rope,
yeah,
you know, a heavy rope. There's one down on the Cape where I go, that works very well, just low posts with a hole drilled through it, and they string the rope through,
Mm-hmm.
and it keeps people, you know,
Yeah,
in the designated area
it looks
where they
appropriate.
walk.
We did a project with Baxter State Park.
And it looks nice,
Yeah.
you know, that's the other part.
We didn't use, Baxter didn't even use chain, they tried it with string, and it worked incredibly well relative to crowd control.
Mm-hmm.
well, that was kind
Here, we
of,
want something more aesthetic than string, but it does work quite well. I mean, you'll always get the oddball who's gonna step over and do whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But like any of these things, if you can get 95% of the public to do what you want, you've won the game.
Mm-hmm.
right. So that's where I was kind of, as I was thinking about this and looking at the chain, it looks like a plastic yellow chain.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And,
You know, there's a cemetery, I just passed it coming back tonight in Dummer. It has the black post,
yeah,
and it delineates the boundary, you know, with the yellow plastic chain.
yeah,
And if set in, you know, nicely, and it did pick up the idea, I think you had, of let's use a metal post as opposed to something dinky, but aesthetically, it looked nice at the cemetery that I drove by,
I wonder if you get it.
which is where I came up with, well,
It's
wait a
like, too
minute.
bad they don't make it in gray. You know, where it's
I mean,
equal.
there's different
It
colors.
looks like a-
Yeah,
I think you can. Actually, I did a little research too, and is it Uline? They have quite a bit of
yeah.
materials like that.
I was just thinking about plastics though, just in the event if it gets washed out or broken, I don't want to be responsible for more plastic trash
Yeah.
that accumulates there.
Then hemp rope.
Yeah,
Well,
I think I like that.
I don't want to go super hippie, but I think.
Well, you could just.
What are you
throw-
talking about?
you just
Well,
throw-
I was looking at these, which are sort of like what you would see a
Yep.
golf course, which is a
As long as it's not that plastic stuff that gives you splinters.
no, it's a steel post that has a ring and a post so you can loop
yeah, yeah.
something through it. You just run your string through there, hook it to the post,
Yeah.
and it'll tension
Yeah.
it. And that's very low profile, I think.
How expensive are they? I think somebody would take those.
Well, they'd have to.
Also, it doesn't have to be too high.
A 36 inch,
Which is a good height, 3 feet, yeah.
36 inches, 12 of them are 235. But that's a very basic concept. I mean, it's just a 3-inch rod with a ring on the top of it. So,
Be nice to have already made.
and they're painted. I was thinking they just have a spike on the bottom, and I think because they're designed at a golf course, they're
Yep.
more turf oriented. But because they're steel, we could have wings welded onto them so that they have a little bit more body going into the ground, or because they're a rod, if we hit ledge, we could just drill
Mhm.
3-inch hole and
3/8.
yeah,
So this is 235 for a dozen,
for a dozen.
just the pole or with the chain?
It's just the stake.
It's like, what, $18 a piece or something?
That's what I ran into when I was doing the homework, is the post that's the expense.
Yeah.
Unless
I
we,
was thinking 3/4 inch galvanized, old steel pipe, like a galvanized pipe you used to see in
Yeah.
houses. But there's so much of it out there. Like if you went to the dump on the right day, you could literally walk away with.
But you still have to cut it and stick a hole through it and,
Yeah, but it's free.
yeah.
I mean, you can buy it, it's not cheap.
It's just a
Yeah.
matter of, you know,
But it's
getting
also
the work
three,
done.
it's also 3/4 of an inch versus a 3/8 piece of metal is not very strong. A 3/8 inch dowel was easily whippable.
Well, what I might suggest is we go out and sort of figure out what distance we think and how many of these we need.
Right, how far
Yeah.
between posts?
Because at 235, if we had to buy a set of 4 or 5 of those for $1,000, $1,500, that's probably worth more than us trying to go to the dump and get stuff and paint it and bring it. If it turns out that we need to buy $5,000 or $10,000 worth, then I think we're in a different ballgame. But I would suggest we just go out and kind of figure out, because you don't want the distance to be too far relative to just because that's the cheapest way.
Right, it sags, terrible.
And some of those areas, you could probably carry it quite a distance, and some, because you're gonna have a tight turn or something, you might have them relatively close, but we might go out and just try to measure out, how many of these posts do we really think we need? What's the cost?
it doesn't matter what the material is between the posts because anything heavier is gonna sag.
Well, I think you need to have your hands on, before you commit to it, I think you need to handle it. I wouldn't feel
Yeah.
comfortable.
The stake.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like before I commit to a system, I want to know what, is it going to work at the balls, you know?
Okay.
Or maybe they have these at the golf course. Maybe they, in one of the surrounding courses, you see something that's almost identical.
Eagle, I think, is wooden. They're little square things, and they're fairly low.
I feel like I've seen something like this though. I mean, 3/8 is, it's pretty thin for something 36 inches tall. I mean, if it's trying to keep a golf cart out, because you know you're not going there, but if we're talking about what we see take place with trees and things falling down in a forested, you know,
It's more likely a dog going through it or a kid falling into it.
yeah.
You know, they're joking around, messing around.
Because a lot of them, when I looked it up, particularly when I was looking at the plastic chain you could get posts, because they call it crowd control.
Mhm.
But a lot of those are sort of plastic on stanchion where, you know, you're gonna move the cue from here to here.
Yeah.
Or whatever the case may be. And they were in that same price range when I
Yeah.
looked at it, yeah.
No,
This was the closest that I could find that I
Yeah.
feel would be appropriate to use there.
that's a good idea.
But I also just wanted to, before I purchase chain, thinking about that, is like, I don't really want plastic trash. If it's gonna get broken, I've been encountering this thing you were talking about, people moving the brush pile, or like blocking off the paths, and like, so if people are gonna move things around, like how fixable is it going to be, like longevity wise?
I like the rope personally. I'd prefer that.
Do they have the rope as well here?
No.
No, we can get that.
We can get,
Yeah.
We can have
Lucy's are any place.
Jackson Grammar School do a macrame class. Make us some
Just want some plastic
hawsers
stuff.
or something.
well, I can do splices.
Yeah, that's a nicer one.
I was
I find
also,
it difficult to tie flies now with 2 arthritic thumbs.
I know, I can't flatten this thing, no.
Can't wait.
Yeah,
Can't wait.
oh, it won't happen to you.
Good.
You know what they say, Brian, cheer up, it gets worse.
Yeah, I know. One day at a time.
was also, one of the other things about this that I was thinking was that if we went with like a rope or string, it would be easy to tie or add something into the middle as a mid barrier rather than, I don't know if we need more.
You could just clamp, just get a, you know, almost like something you use on a electric rod, you know, to take a grounding rod piece, you can just put that on there, thread it, tighten it on.
But electric fence.
Yeah, well, we were talking razor wire before. So I think that's worth
We'll just say it's bear control.
thinking about.
Okay.
I mean, if you're going that direction, that's fairly inexpensive. That's under $20. You know, I mean, if you're going in that direction, though, it's like you can start to look at almost like steel balusters and things that are just generic steel black balusters that they might be square. I mean, there's a couple other options. I just don't know if we hit that price point. But
The
they'd be a little
install
stronger.
for these would be pretty good because you could take a healthy
Right.
and just
Drill.
drill right down, whatever you hit, right, a
Right.
rock or
Right, or dirt.
dirt, and, you know, you just make that channel and then tap it in.
And there's a lot to be said for that, because these, I think as you mentioned, Pam, where people pick up and move these are probably made to be able to pick up and move relatively easy from one location to another. I think we want something that's
In the ground.
in the ground.
Sure.
For two reasons. The other is if we get a flood through there, you want those things to be
To stay.
anchored.
Right.
It's true, if a tree comes through, it's gonna either bend it or do whatever it's going to. But these, I would guess, if they're in, yeah,
I mean, and a half inch is more standard in my mind of if you're building something with steel rod or square, it's usually about 7/16 to a half inch, you know, to get a little bit more rigidity. Like if you were to pound something in 3/8 of an inch, it's pretty noodly.
So do you think that just,
We could talk to Isaacson Steel and just about getting half-inch square stock with a cap welded on the top,
yeah,
or now it's Presby Steel.
I think it's that little bit of fabrication that is the whole,
Yeah, which we could just have them price it out.
Who would
And
press it, who would press it out?
Presby Steel, just a steel company where you're buying at a more commercial rate.
you're on the road in Berlin, right, as you go by the prisons, on the left-hand side.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised how sometimes inexpensive, simple things like that are for them, because they're literally just tack welding on a ring to the top of a square piece of steel. You're buying it by,
Or a U.
right, yeah,
Yeah,
you
just
just
some-
anything you could, right, they take
Just
something,
to
they
thread it
cut it in
through.
half and then tack weld it on with a U. So there's ways, and you probably don't even have it painted, have it rust and patina out.
And they could do one halfway down too.
You get a lot of, yeah. I mean,
That's a project we might bring to the Canada High School.
Yeah,
I mean, my thought is this is probably not gonna go until next spring anyways, you got all the construction and everything else up there, but it might be worth just approaching Canada, because I think once I don't care whether it's Presby or whoever, once you get into them doing special work on each individual post, you
I'll
know,
just ask him, I mean, he's not gonna,
yeah,
I mean, you'd be surprised, it could be $500 for a lot of them.
yeah, you think?
Because the cost of the steel is just peanuts compared to when you're buying it.
Yeah,
So it would still be much more effective to do it with the fabrication.
Well, we'll find out, I'm just throwing it out there.
but if you follow federal standards, you'd have to make sure that it's US steel,
Right?
which is, I mean, we laugh at it, and it's a good thing in the long run, but it's
Yeah.
painful in between.
Yeah,
US hemp and US steel.
doing good.
right, okay. Well, I think that's a better direction to be moving
Yeah,
in.
you're right, just fix that.
And we had, I guess moving on, we're off of that to the mitigation meeting that I had with the FEMA delegation. I'm sure someday this process will make sense to me. It's a lot of toing and froing and multiple people with wheels measuring things and
Yeah.
So I think it went fine. I tried to get clarification on that point that they were raising about the notification. I think we're in agreement that we did not need to do that.
Yeah.
I tried to pin her down on where she read that, and she just said it was not in the language of proclamation, but in the federal. And I'm like, well, I can't find that. The thing that you quoted to me says that this is for federal agencies. So is this because if FEMA is paying for this, FEMA needs to provide notification? Is in that case that I'm doing your homework for you? So we just filed a letter going out to the Forest Service that we had done work at Jackson Falls and that we'll be receiving FEMA funds for it.
Because the management plan is very specific,
Yeah,
which is, I mean, being in the wild and scenic is actually within the National Park Service. Because the wildcat is on both federal land, because it originates in White Mountain National Forest and then proceeds on to private and ended down in Jackson lands. The White Mountain National Forest then became the land manager and responsible for putting the management plan together, but it does not allow them to oversee and tell the town and private people what to do. And that's clear in the whole National Wild and Scenic River Program. And that because I dug up the management plan, and it's very specific that private property, the Forest Service can't tell them what to do. And it's very specific that the responsibilities of managing on town property is the town's, to stay within the reasons why they got it designated.
yeah. So we just added the list of things that they ask for, that they say that they need. It's like, well, do you start the day with this pile of things and you just seed them out through the process, or are they just coming to you, or you've been able to provide everything so far? But it's an interesting process. So.
So what was the conclusion of the visit?
That what we reported was correct, and that the measurements in GPS correspond to what we provided, and
So
they,
we're on course.
yes.
Okay.
The next phase, the next phase getting into it is the mitigation funds. And they have not scheduled that, but that is another meeting, that is a separate program, and I don't know how to be a good fiscal steward, being like, if there is money available for a project that requires me to take on a full-time job
Right,
managing this, rather than just paying for it,
that's what I was like, are we getting $60 out of this?
it's
Well,
kind
the
of,
mitigation would be different.
and that is that they'll
Right.
pay 100 up to 100% of what we do to mitigate future things, but the sort of hoop jumping and well, if I can just make sure that we're doing this correct from the beginning rather than having to work backwards from this, I'm very happy. And it's never in the right meeting where they're saying, well, we'll talk about this in the future. I'm like, well, I want to talk about it right now.
But, so you're saying the mitigation is for us to basically add things so that it won't degrade in the future? Not just to replace what was there?
It's an entirely separate fund.
There's two pots of money.
Yeah.
One is to essentially just pay back for the damage that was done on site, but not mitigation for the future.
Correct.
And that's where I think Ben is spending a lot of time for what's going to amount to a small amount of dollars. The mitigation is different because we're talking about particularly substantial money to really do the mitigation up there properly. That's a different pot of money.
Right, keep it from happening again.
Right.
Yeah,
But you're saying it's not gonna
And,
get.
but that's good for the government to do.
Right.
I think we'd be very
That, they
competitive
don't
in
get
mitigation.
Right.
nickel and dime you
Yeah,
for the recurring
Right.
problems that
yeah.
if you don't do the mitigation.
But I've been delinquent, and just kick me in the butt to make sure I get this done real quick. If we're gonna go for mitigation, we really should have a management plan in place, because that will really help push us through a mitigation grant funding scenarios. I will try to get that here, so we can go through it at the next meeting.
Mhm.
And,
Because I was gonna ask what their timeline is, because I do think it'll be critical that we have a plan.
Don't we have something now anyway?
We have bits and pieces. The wildlife, the wild and scenic is very generic. And then it was pre my time, but a consultant was hired. But I think you want to revisit that for two reasons. One, it was done quite a while ago.
2000.
And the second is we're seeing stuff that's happening at a scale that wasn't happening when that plan was put together. And I think the third thing is we kind of have to come to agreement on what it is that we're comfortable putting forth. I mean, like anytime you hire a consultant, they'll give you a plan. It doesn't mean you're comfortable with the plan. You paid them, they gave you their professional advice. Sometimes it's,
Yeah, well, it's easy
Spot
if you don't set any boundaries.
yeah.
For one thing in design, it's like,
But let me try to come back.
So what you might want to do is amend and restate that original plan. You can do whatever you want, but that way you don't have two plans out there at the same time.
Well,
Just-
I wasn't on the commission then, so I can't speak, but I mean, we all have those, it's in the file. It's pretty generic.
Mm.
It's kind of like, well, you know, you want to stop the erosion on the side, that sort of stuff. And then it gets down to how much, it wouldn't be riprap, but if you don't want it to continue, for example, right after it comes underneath with a bridge and then dumps down, it's eroding on the river right side or the west side, you know, right down to the roots on a bunch of those trees.
Mhm.
Do you want to put in like granite or something to protect those, or do you want to just say that's natural, and when the trees fall down, the trees fall down? That's a decision we have to make. There's no, a consultant isn't going to tell you the answer, he's just simply going to say those are the two things that are going to happen. You have to decide what you want to do and how much you're willing to pay.
yeah. So I've just asked the FEMA rep to keep us in the loop for when that is happening
Yeah.
and giving us a heads up, because I want to go into that meeting a little bit more forearmed about, like, I think we have an idea of what we want to do, especially with the, continuing with the sod. And the mitigation rep, who is the second or third mitigation person I've talked to, and they said, well, when we get to that point, we'll prepare a plan for what we'll do for you. And I'm like, well, I would like to understand, like, this is what we're doing.
Well, if they, you know, if they can dip into like, you know, the local arm of the U.S. Forest Service is what is the old Soil Conservation Service, now it's called something different. But whatever, they do have some
The
folks that,
National Resource.
yeah. Most likely, if you're really gonna spend some money, you'd hire a fluvial hydrologist who would take a look at that. But I don't think that's actually gonna help us, because that's just straight, it's not a meandering thing like,
Well, we
you know.
did have the water, the hydrologist, I think, no, from the first.
Yeah.
plan.
yeah, we did.
But Ben, I think what would be helpful from the mitigation folks is a lot of those, there'll be like 1 or 2 cycles per year where you can go for the grants. It's not like it's a one time and then never again. A lot of those programs, you know, like there's a November deadline and then there's a July. It would be worth knowing what their deadline phase is. And, you know, if the next one is September, we might, and then the following one is April, then I would suggest that we really focus on April so we can do our homework properly as opposed to just doing a crash thing.
Well, and I have requested that, so I think as soon as when the FEMA rep knows and schedules a meeting.
Yeah.
She's been out of town, so I think she's getting back this week, so that may progress further. Moving at a rapid snail pace.
Nice.
Um,
Potato beetle paste.
yeah, something just popped in my head and popped back out, but is there any other Jackson Falls
So we're not gonna do the
Gary
soft
fence?
planting work day
Mm.
or sod or anything like that right now?
Yeah, I think we move forward. I don't want to get held up on that process. I would like to move forward on that, so, I think last month we had just discussed amounts or of what we wanted to spend there, or kind of square footage that we wanted to cover.
Right.
But from the meeting minutes, it was roughly $7 a square foot, and we're
Yeah.
looking at 100 to 200 square feet is the next round.
But I think Pam, you looked at 100, and I'm like, well, why not?
I'd say
Two
it's
hundred.
200,
Yeah,
I mean,
just to make it worth our while
Yeah.
while we're there. I would consider adding a landscaping fabric into our material mix, or adding that. I think that was one of the things that the FEMA reps had suggested, which I think,
You mean like a geotextile?
yeah,
is that the plastic stuff?
It's like a woven, it's not
The nasty
plastic.
stuff they have it over by the parking area that when stuff falls off it, it starts.
Not the, well, there's
Peeling back.
like a plasticky kind of, I don't want to say Home Depot style, and then there's the kind of like a person uses it, they build roads.
it's kind of like felt. Or,
Yeah,
That's okay, and just the plastic stuff is just, it breaks up and it's.
yeah, it's not that stuff though.
Okay.
It's either a geotextile or a felt type product.
Yeah.
and I think staking it down, or like getting it as close to ledge as possible, and then just,
And then you put all your plants on top of it and you hope that the roots go through and hold, is that the idea?
it-
Multiple,
yeah.
it keeps vines from getting through, like if you get heavy rains, it helps keep soils from separating from one another.
So I'm just trying to figure out how that
Helps us.
helps us. I mean, I can understand how it might help if you're trying to work over roots, like you were talking about the right-hand side of it, the falls, where it's all rooted and stuff. So I imagine you could put soil in between the roots and then put the fabric over it to hold the roots in, and then plant on top of it and hope that stuff will grow through it. Is that the idea? I'm just trying to picture it.
No, I don't know if I know exactly, I mean, it helps with like shear, like the separation, the soils, like, it's like it's a barrier. So your mass can like root and grow in something, and it doesn't just shear off, and just like as the water table rises, you don't just, it's like it helps to bind, but it also keeps some of the material from penetrating through, getting to the next layer. Like water goes through, but the soils don't, when they turn into a fine, they get thin, they don't just permeate through it, so you don't lose it to the rock that then washes it away. So it's there's multiple different benefits of it, and I don't know if I'm summarizing,
Okay.
if I'm combining 3 products into one, or,
Because I know that the lower sod that we put in down by the dam down there, that stuff held up quite well. It didn't have any extra stuff, no special materials or anything like that. It's at an angle, it got hit with a lot of water. So
I think
I'm
the
not
only
quite sure just
challenge,
that. That's
though,
what I'm trying to figure out.
That was dirt on dirt, where, like where the picnic table got washed down to, we're kind of dirt on root or dirt on rock. I think that spot's gonna be more challenging than any of the spots we've done to date, just because the base matrix has been damaged pretty badly, whereas all the other places we were just going on,
yeah.
there was already soil there, we were just putting stuff on and letting the roots grow right down in. I don't know what the
Yeah.
right answer is, but
Yeah, so,
I think the danger of just laying sod down there could be a little bit higher because it just could pick it up and move it. But
Okay.
Yeah, you
So
can
you
look it
stake it
up.
down, so you
Yeah.
stake down stuff, the roots go through it, so it holds in two ways. Holds with the stakes and holds with the roots.
Mhm.
That's what you're saying,
Well,
okay.
I
So if
think-
you're gonna flow.
And
it,
it's like it becomes a solid mass that's then woven together.
Mhm.
Whereas if it gets saturated and it's not there, you
Mhm.
could make effectively make more like a mud-like product that would just break away.
Yeah.
The
So it's
seed
more like
in-
a rock plants, okay.
Hmm?
It's more like rock. You're creating rocks, so for water to flow over it rather than to take it out, to take it away, to move it. You're trying to make it immovable. You're trying to make the sod immovable, right?
Yeah, I think it gives a little bit more of a matrix for the sod to bond to,
Mhm.
so you get that stronger, earlier strength.
Okay.
And rather than the individual, well, I guess at some point they all grow together. I think this is just to kind of help us skip a year or two of growth, just to
Okay.
get it stronger
Yeah.
earlier.
And it's also drainable, whereas if you're directly onto the granite is the drain. You know, so there's just this other matrix, I guess is the right word for it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Be interesting to do it in those roots up at the top. That'd be interesting. Be a cool project.
Yeah, so I guess if, do you want to plan on doing that in September or just start moving on that?
Sure. Yep, could do that.
I can do an internet search as well to see what kind of matting
Okay.
works on bedrock or roots as opposed to see what we come up with.
So you look into the materials, is that what you're saying?
I mean, I'm a novice in this game, but usually when you go on the internet, if you get into the, what I'll call the good literature as opposed to the advertisement literature, you can, I mean, this is nothing new.
I would suggest that when we do any of this work now, we document it with either some pictures or a
Yeah.
written statement of what's going on, because as things go into the future, I think that if we have a paper trail of what we've done, that we'll have a better chance of recouping money or getting grant money or whatever.
We're also figuring what's effective and what isn't.
Right, and then for our own use, exactly.
Because sometimes
We
we'll
do a bunch
fail.
of work and then
Yeah,
we come back, after the next event and go, well, that's all gone. Then we'll say, okay, we'll try to.
but this worked,
Yeah,
this stayed, right? Yeah. So then we have to figure out the materials and that sort of thing.
So if we have $1,400 worth of sod, that's 200 square feet. What were we
Well, we
on
need,
amendments and?
we need peat moss.
do we roll that out or do they also roll it out? Or are they, is it rollers or squares?
Squares.
Yeah, it's like rectangles.
They just left it on a pallet for us sometimes. Perhaps.
Yeah, it can be pretty thick.
I think Bob came down with this little bobcat and that made a world of difference in moving that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we don't have to move soil, it's, that's still better too. So what we've done before is I've just put down, I think, we just did mudu and peat moss on top of soil that was already there. And then, and you always need more than you think. And then we're gonna need that material.
Brian, did you have a link to any of those matting?
Yeah, I'm just looking at one right now.
If you can send those to me, that would be, probably start me down the right path.
Do you want me to get you a quote on those materials, the peat moss and the, hoodoo? I can do that.
Yeah. And then we can, basically we want to vote on a number now just so we can start rolling on purchasing, just have that ready to go for September.
Though, you know, if this is really gonna get expensive, it might be worth not just rushing to September, but if we're gonna put in for a mitigation fund, this would be prime for that kind of thing.
Yes, so that's, but also
I think the rush to get it done just by the end of this year should probably play second fiddle to let's really get a good plan and also understand where we may or may not be able to get funds as opposed to 1,000 here and 1,000 there. I mean, we're already deep into the summer. My observation is use is probably slowed down there in part because of the bridge construction. I don't know if others is, I mean, it's not that there are not people there, but you
Yeah,
don't
it
see,
definitely seems quieter.
you don't see people up on Valley Cross parking and coming back and that sort of,
July 4th, they were parked in Valley Cross on the Carter Notch side.
on the, on
They were
the,
using it as a parking lot.
Yeah.
well, I also saw the police picketing them
Yeah,
guys.
that was pretty funny, like, whoa.
I think in general, it's definitely been quieter.
Mm.
And then I have a project on Carter Notch Road, up there 2 or 3 times a day.
We're not seeing the kinds of stuff that COVID
Not
brought up,
COVID numbers, no, by no means.
and the forest isn't seeing that either.
okay. Well, if we want to just keep on working on that,
Okay.
And if we can get a better understanding of how the mitigation fund possibility exists or doesn't.
I would assume that the mitigation would allow for the sod planting, just because
I
that
do
hasn't
too.
survived.
Yeah,
So are you saying that we can't start the project because we need to get the mitigation funds first?
depends, most federal things you cannot back charge.
Okay.
okay, well, I'll
It's a
try to
little
get
different than
some,
the damage,
Mhm.
but mitigation funds, those types of things.
Well, we
don't-
have plenty of places to mitigate besides the obvious. So we might be able to do some to repair and then wait for the mitigation funds.
I guess
to come out.
well, that's a good point, because we do need to, chicken and egg thing, we do have to do the repair for the things that we are getting
Yeah,
restoration funds for, so we will need to move forward on that. We have 18 months. And I also need to get a clarity on that, if it's 18 months from when the disaster was declared, or 18 months from the start of the process, or, yeah.
I would guess it's 18 months after you're approved. I can't believe it's 18 months, because if they haven't approved you.
Right. You've got 3 weeks to get it done.
Sometimes that happens.
Okay, well, I guess it sounds like we can keep on working on that. Anything else on Jackson Falls?
Just
Finished moving?
dangerous place to drive past, and there's cars coming in and out. It's kind of nuts, but the way that we have people park.
It's kind of nice without the bridge, though. I'll say that.
Yeah, but just as like in general, when you drive up there, it's just so silly that people are trying to back out and you're climbing up a hill, and it's just the
Garrett, have you heard anything from Garrett about
No.
the fence?
No, yes, Gary, yes. He is buying the parts
Okay.
Buying
Yeah.
parts
for the fence that got damaged.
Oh, good, okay.
I think at the town.
Yeah, sorry. Gary Spears. Okay, I'll let Julie know. And the rest of the wood chip pile that was at the handicap spot has all been moved, so that there are still a little bit more chips at the very top.
Do we want more?
I don't think we need any more at the moment. I think what we have at the top can fill what we need. Sound good?
Yeah. Is there more to move up there at the top?
Just next to the porta potty, that, I haven't really touched that pile since early May.
I may be able to get to that sometime next week or two.
But that was low priority because it's, you can't get in there access anyway, so. Okay. Gray's Inn. Ski touring has been up there, weed whacking. She pushed the pathway out to its full extent to kind of take care of some of the young suckers that are starting to come up, and just to make it easier for early season grooming. So I haven't had a chance to look at it, but
I haven't either.
they are doing mowing on that, and I don't know. Has the Conservation Commission ever done any other maintenance up there other than just the like occasional blow down stuff, or like the bridges that are up there? Those are ski touring bridges.
Yeah, we've only just maintained the Mystery House loop.
Okay. But all the other infrastructure up there is ski touring stuff. So
As far as I've ever known, we've never done it unless, no, I don't even think when like site was beautified that we did those bridges. I think that was still worked together with ski touring when Tom Perkins was.
I think the last that I remember was just cleaning up the junk that was up there. This is at the beginning of when they cleaned it up.
Right,
over there.
Priakowitz
Yeah.
came in and,
When John was in there, and you know, because it had been used as a metal dump.
yeah, they buried the
Mins,
whole building.
So a lot got buried, but a couple big truckloads went out.
Yeah.
okay. I just didn't want to think if there was something that we weren't doing.
No, we've always just kept the trees down, and then ski tour would do it if it was gonna affect snowshoeing on the Mystery House.
And a lot of those trails also go on to Nestle Nooks.
Yeah.
So that's very, Mr. Sears has since passed away.
He did?
Yeah.
That must have been just,
It's probably a month, 2-3 months ago.
yeah, because I know he was.
But it was also confusing because the ski touring, I know, because we met with him as well. He formed the condo association as well. It's not clear what in that land is now the condo association's land and what was Nestle Nook that he owned. So it's a little unclear, but many of those trails, as we all know, go down onto, quote, Nestle Nook or the Nestle Nook Condo Association. I mean, it doesn't take long to get off the town property and you're onto
Oh, yeah, and that's
somebody else's
a
property.
pretty substantial network of trails they have there.
Oh, yeah. Wigglesworth and all of those
Oh,
are
yeah,
very
that's good
popular.
stuff.
I know they had that poison ivy concern back there. But I guess mowing,
I
that's
just
part of it.
mowing
And you know who the new owner is, Ken?
making it wide enough so that.
I don't know, it was all very confusing. The short answer is
Wide
I
without
don't.
having-
Mhm.
Because I have a friend who attended some meetings about some work there. He was still alive, that was just a couple months ago.
Yeah, but I know he, I kind of blanked out, but I know he passed away in the sometime this year.
Hmm.
It was a little strange as to how it was gonna be inherited.
Yeah, he still had to say at that point. He still had quite a bit of say at that point.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I think he was a little challenged because when we met with him, he wanted to do X, Y, Z, and we were sort of sitting there saying, we don't quite understand who owns what.
Yeah.
Are you
I think
suggesting a lot that you like to do, but it's actually not your
I think
property?
it's a waiting, I think it was sort of a waiting game for
Yeah.
everybody to, now it'll smooth out, we'll know who's got what.
Because he was in pretty poor health, yeah.
Community garden,
It's all good.
great. Wildcat River did another round of testing. I don't remember any of the numbers, but
They all passed.
it's all water.
Gonna do any bacteria testing at all, the E. coli stuff?
I guess to get a baseline, we can do that. I don't. We will have to pay for that, and I don't know how it'll fold into the.
It's like 35
Yeah.
hours or something like that, it's not bad.
If you're gonna do that, go out and do it right after a major storm.
That's not that hard to do, and keep getting streams.
Yeah.
There was a big trout in the upper pool with, I don't know if you should tell people are fishermen. There was a good-sized trout, and there hasn't been any there all summer. But that last water flow brought it down.
Yeah, I don't think they stocked the upper part now above the falls.
Good size.
Yeah. Well, they still stock, that's,
There was only one.
yeah.
No, not that.
I know, but
They get
you
magnified
always
more.
have to exaggerate.
It's fishing,
Um,
the deer.
I had my goggles on, I could see.
Conservation easements, I guess we're approaching time when I've done mine, kind of October, November, and
You asked me to do the pepper easement, or
yeah, Brookside or
where is that material? Is that online? I haven't-
You want to get, it is online, but I think it's helpful to get a paper copy, to have a sort of cheat sheet to see how it's filled out in the past.
Yeah, let me look through that. With Spinnef, you can go back and read all of the reports.
Because their easement is with the town, it's not with Spinnef.
They're the,
That's the backbone, the executory interest.
yeah,
Yeah,
Could be,
that's who we file the report with.
yeah.
okay.
And
Because Alice Pepper doesn't own that anymore, it's actually with her daughter and her son.
Sarah.
Yeah. And she's in Sweden right now, but I mean, I can ping her for permission to go down and walk through there, that's a non-issue.
well, in September is when I've been sending out the notification letters to the landowners, letting them know that we will
Okay,
be doing
yeah.
it, so. But if you can, because I think our contact still has Alice as the contact.
But I know because they gave a trail easement to the Jackson Ski Touring Foundation, and it was through Brookside LLC, which is overseen by Sarah and her brother. And because her brother's got serious medical issues.
Okay. Well, those letters will be going out in September, so
Okay.
I think Julie usually has a good up-to-date.
Yeah, if you just show me the form, that's all I need. I mean, I can probably find it, but if you've got it, you can send it to me, it'll just save me a lot of time.
I had some mumblings about something that ski touring did that flooded the field down there. What happened?
That is an individual's hypothesis, but we have a video, and that flood,
It wasn't you.
it's like saying, I mean, that's the same time that all of the golf course was underwater.
Right.
They
Okay,
actually,
I'm just,
yeah, I've
don't
heard,
be too,
we've heard it, yeah.
okay.
It's
Um,
misinformation.
No, that was actually,
I heard it too.
that was actually rip-wrapped illegally years ago, which is what's causing the flooding down there.
Okay. Exciting. The only wetlands thing we had come through was just the permit notification for that work that was done for the trout rehabilitation. So nothing.
I've had two people stop by my job at Garden Notch Road and ask me about the house lot at the end of Malone Road, the one that we didn't sign because of the
Yeah.
just the site in general. And you know, they're interested in buying it, but so concerned that it looks like it's just a big wetland. And
Because
as a builder, what's my feeling on it? And I haven't said that was on the Conservation Commission, just kind of really chose it not that much of an opinion, except that I said I looked at that lot because I was privy to, you know, that it was going on sale before it went and looked at it. I just went up there the other day. I rode my bike up and there was a couple from Massachusetts looking at it. And I didn't know that's what they were there to do. I just rode up and I went to turn around and just stared at it for a minute and thought, and the guy said to me, "Where would you put the house?" And I asked him, I said, "Are you looking at buying it?" And he's like, "Well," he's just looking at it and I'm like, "It's all underwater."
Was it underwater?
Yeah, I mean, it's
here?
literally just it was just a sheet of water.
Wow.
And again, my opinion is, I mean, you could, obviously for enough money, you could make this be a beautiful spot, but it just looks like it should be considered a non-buildable lot.
It's wetland.
I mean, wetland or not wetland, if it's not, like, we don't qualify it as wetland, it just, the reason it's still there is because that's what it is so often. And it's just, I know that you can engineer a system to resolve the problem and re-put the water, but it's just, again, it just gets to a point on some of these lots you look at, that we go to look at, it's like, of course, you can build here because you're gonna dig it up and change the entire
Does that
lay of the land.
Does that
but
lot hook up to any conservation land or anything like that?
Shortly thereafter, you're into the Wildcat, 200 acres that's, not Dartmouth or Harvard, but there's that land across to the Wildcat Valley Trail goes through.
Mm.
And that's an easement on there, I think.
And Upper Saco now has a new parcel that's in that general area as well, I think.
Just trying to figure out if there's any connection that, you know, maybe a conservation organization could get that.
I mean, it's a
property
cool
instead.
spot. You can totally see someone will probably do something nice with it. But when you look at it, what it is, it's just like I've worked in so many sites
Are you talking about the one that's,
at the top of Malone.
where the dump is on one side, the
One that
little
you
quarter
guys looked
acre
at.
Yeah,
that we looked at?
yeah.
And they
It
want
was
to put that
literally
pipe
just
in and.
sheeting water across it.
Tell them to moor the house within, outside of 25 feet of the road.
Yeah.
Tell
And they'll
me.
be fine.
They
I mean, it's
know
never
how
gonna
to-
wash away. Like, you can obviously make it work. It's just, when you look at it, you just go, there's so many sites I've been on where people are gonna build, and people say, "Oh, that's not the build, you can't build there." Like, how many lots I've gone to where someone goes, "I wanna put this in here," and someone's like, "Oh, you can't build there, that's this." When you stare and look at one, and it's like the entire lot is what we're telling people, "Oh, you clearly can't build there."
Is the vegetation, wetlands?
It's, some of it is, I mean, there's the areas that are considered wetland,
Yeah,
but then there's like a patch in between that isn't, but, you
how
know,
do you get to it?
yeah. I mean, it's just because it's not sprouting doesn't mean it's, you know.
Well, it was a
just-
wetland plan that was brought before us, and so it sounds like the property's back on the market again.
Because
Yeah,
that was the driveway where you wanted to
Yeah.
have a
Yeah,
larger,
yeah.
a larger
They-
pipe
they-
going underneath the driveway.
right,
Flush out the neighbor below.
yeah. I mean,
I've been seeing lots of trucks up there, so they're,
there's those other two lots
Yeah.
that are having work, and, I mean, for any of us who wants to watch, you know, like, now that the lots that are available are more, when I say less choice locations, I mean, there's reasons that people didn't build in those spots,
Right.
and you see the work that they have to do, but they are all on a fine line of completely blowing out their entire construction sites into the river. I mean, it's just, you're on the side hill, everybody has to dig these huge trenches to take their water and redirect it. I mean, if you go up there on a bad day, what you see is not good. There's no way you can manage it. Hay bales, it doesn't matter, it fails, you just have to replace it. It's just disappointing, but I mean, I get it, because in the end, hopefully they can stabilize all these spots, but It's just when you see what's really truly available now, to truly do it right so it doesn't fail, with the rain we get, it's almost impossible. So it's just kind of a bummer.
Have they been made, I didn't go and look at those spots, but they have
Yeah.
properly installed.
I mean, I don't go there every day.
I mean, Kevin,
I think he's doing the best he can.
okay,
I mean, I just go through this because I ride Movement Road a lot, and it's just interesting to ride through and just
Yeah.
see how they can pull this off, you know? But, yeah, the amounts of sediment that get moved, I don't know. I wouldn't say I feel comfortable that those sites won't get blown out once or twice in the course of the next 10 years. Which is a lot. But there's also roads on, this isn't in our area, but on 16A, you drive 16A, there's the same driveways that get completely washed out 5 times a year down to the road. It's just, how are they still allowed to put the same fill in the same driveway? It's never gonna work. Ditch out 10, 12 inches deep every mid-sized rainstorm. You see it around here too. It's like, we don't plan for that.
yeah. Well, I guess,
I think it's something that would be interesting for us to just watch a little bit more, literally drive around and look at some of the sites and just, because I think that's a lot of erosion. It's a lot of, you're trucking in dump trucks of sand.
Well, there's photos of it dumping a lot of sediment into Wildcat right after a major storm. That's.
Yeah.
so I guess we can piggyback this onto something else, but I don't think we have anything Dundee Community Forest or. So we had a really good turnout to the invasive plant night at the community center. And one of the other options that they had discussed doing there was having a sediment or a erosion control, like if that would be something that we could do. It was well attended. I think we could get. We invited Bartlett to come. I don't think that they had a lot of runtime to advertise it, but I mean.
I think that'd be an excellent topic, because it's something people can do on your own. You can literally just get hay bales and ground stakes and stake areas off and retain sediment, and clean your own ditches, and take the fill that you just gathered and go put it someplace else. Go shim some low spots in your yard. It's just.
The other thing you
This
can
stuff
do
is
too,
just-
is I had a deep ditch on one side of my property, and I take stuff that's cut down on trees, and I put them in the ditch, because that's the best way to hold
Slow it
sediment.
down. Yeah,
They get buried.
right. You just have to
Freaks the
maintain
town
it.
out, because then the ditch isn't so deep, but when it's not so deep, then the side of the road doesn't degrade, and then you don't lose the road.
Yeah,
It's
but
kind of like trying to,
it's a slippery slope though, because
If it
you
gets
have
too
to
shallow.
maintain that. If you don't, then it crests over, and then you wash out the area that
it's
doesn't.
kind of wash out the road if it's too deep, it's gonna wash out the road if it's too shallow, then.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll take that to Greg, see if we put that on their schedule.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good topic. And again, people can do this stuff themselves.
And also, Hank, there were quite a few people who could not attend that asked to have a video, so if you're up for another evening of,
Sure, when is it?
I don't know, but I'm just trying to get this information out to as many people as possible.
Okay.
So I just keeping that on the table.
Yeah,
I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the other thing that just came up is that on Wednesday, September 18th, there would be a volunteer night, or not, like a volunteer open house at the library, that the library and the community center will be doing to get people connected with the nonprofits and volunteer organizations that are doing work in town, that need to be connected with people who are looking to volunteer. So I think that would be a good night for us to recruit people or just let people know that we're looking for warm bodies to shovel stuff.
Do we have a new member, or have we scared everyone away?
My low-key recruitment has not worked well, so
I think it's Benito.
Don't feel bad.
I tried to recruit
It's a
somebody.
long process to get
We want the right
these
people.
together. It is.
This is a good group. I think this is one of our more productive and more inclusive in terms of everybody comfortable talking. Or,
And getting stuff done too.
yeah. I think it's less polarized, even though everybody's.
Did we get something in Jackson E-News yet?
about, no, that, I've been trying to go the low-key route first, so that was my next. And I had bombed, email bombed her several times. I didn't want to keep on sending her things, so I want to kind of paste them out. So that's the next on my to-do list, so. So I think that was everything I had. Does anyone have anything else?
When is the next meeting? Is that Labor Day?
It is the 2nd.
Isn't that Labor Day weekend?
September 2nd. Wow. Oh, it is raining again.
And you're not even over.
It is Labor Day, so
I'm not, but I am. I'm doing some
Fast.
I know, but not getting paid for it.
Alright.
so do we want to move that to
I
the
would say
following
yes.
Monday?
Yeah.
Did you catch that?
No, it's not.
The next Monday is scheduled for Labor Day, so
So it'll be the 9th.
if we follow in week the 9th.
9/9/24.
Okay.
Sure, I'll show up a week early with an excuse for why I can't attend.
Or why you haven't-
This
haven't
is
found
usually what Ben
information.
receives. Ben gets a message from me like, "Yeah, I'm running late, I don't think I can make the meeting." And then Ben will be like, "That's because, don't worry, it's not this week." That makes it even better.
There you go.
Thanks. Like, damn, now I have to say that's one.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Great, thanks.